Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with French-born jazz composer and pianist Laurent Ziliani. We caught up with him to discuss his new 2025 CD Skybound, composing, living in the music world, and his travels. Skybound is a musical tribute to his dear friend and the late violinist and pilot Ben Powell. Written shortly after Ben's passing, the piece was later recorded by an ensemble of first-class musicians, many of whom were personal friends and collaborators. Joining him on this effort while he's on the keys is Nicholas Daley on trombone, Peter Erskine on the drums, Nick Mancini on the vibraphone, Kyle Newmaster on trumpet and flugelhorns, Darius Scheider on guitar, Michael Valerio on upright bass, Leah Zeger on violin, and Zac Zinger on the saxophones, alto, flute, and clarinets. He's a native of France, studied there, but decided to come to the Berklee College of Music, where he got his Bachelor of Music and Film Scoring, and that story continues in our interview. Enjoy this story. Well, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting into the album. I'm looking forward to getting into your world of music. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a special tribute album to a violinist and pilot, Ben Powell, called Skybound. And before we get into that album,
yes,
I always begin with musicians with this question. And it's 5 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced your creativity and what you do today?
Well, that's a great question. It's changed the approach I have about writing, recording music, and that's the case with Skybound. I found it actually easy to record from our home studios and put everything together afterwards, which is something that I wouldn't imagine before the pandemic. So we would record remotely. I had a lot of recording sessions with Eastern Europe in particular, like many people. But I found that working with my favorite musicians who were in New York or in Europe was not a problem anymore. We didn't have to have complicated meetings. So after the first year where everybody was very down, I like how we found ways to still make music. It's like music is like this, weed that still going to grow whatever you do. It's just we still need to do music so bad that we found that way to have the music continue. And I kept a lot of that way of recording that it sort of added a new tool to the recording. So rather than brood on all the depression that the pandemic was, I like to see I like to look at the bright aspect of that, and really that's the first thing that comes to mind is how it brought a new tool sort of to the recording palette, so to speak.
Good deal. So let me ask you this. Talk to me a little bit about Skybound. Talk to me about how the project came about. Talk to me a little bit about Ben and the project in general.
Yes. So I've known Ben Powell, which was an incredible violin player for about 20 years. And we were roommates for many years in LA. And he moved out to Texas and then to New Orleans. And we loosely kept in touch. And he kept doing his albums and I kept doing my music, mostly video games stuff. And about a year and a half ago, I started to work on my first album as a singer. It's a jazz album that's going to come out next year. It's a cover of Sondheim. And I found out that Ben was very ill. He had terminal cancer. And it went very fast. It was horrible. He in a few months, he went from being so vibrant and inspiring, full of life, to he passed away in October, a little bit over a year ago, and it affected a lot of people around me and myself. And I sat down at the piano and I wrote a melody and chords and a little piece, and I had no idea what I would do with it. I heard a big band play it, mostly because I was already working on a big band album. And I let it rest. I left it until, I think, till February. I didn't retouch it. And then I listened to it again once, I guess, emotions were a little less fresh. And I started to think I should record it. And it was written mostly for violin, for obvious reason, because Ben was this incredible violin player. And so I reached out to the person who musically knew Ben the best, which was Leah Zeger, who was this incredible violin player who plays with Hans Zimmer. She tours with him. She's also a great jazz player. And we are neighbors, actually. So she, after a moment of thinking, she wasn't sure at first she would want to join and revisit this heavy episode. She accepted to come to my home studio and record that piece. And it elevated the entire experience so much. And it was like, I definitely need to record this. So I reached out to all the players Ben had recorded the previous albums. He's produced 2 or 3 albums. That's Peter Erskine and Nick Mancini, Michael Valerio, and a couple others. Most of them said yes. And so, and they did it pandemic style from their home studios, except Leah, who came to my home studio. So, and it came together after that very quickly and very easily. And the musicians were so incredibly good that the piece was transfigured and taken to the next level.
So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album? There's obviously a lot of emotion. It's a moving tribute. What do you hope they get?
I hope they hear the light that he had, because this was inspired by, Ben was a pilot. Also, his other passion was to fly. And he took me on a flight over Los Angeles several years ago. And I remember after he passed, I really tried to channel that memory, because he was maneuvering his airplane with so much grace, and it was so easy for him to move it in the sky. And it was just like the way he played the violin, with so much grace and effortlessly. And from up there, although LA is so busy and tentacular and crazy city, from a few thousand feet above, everything was so quiet and almost serene. And I try to channel that, and so I hope the listener will hear the grace and the light he had, and the effortless demeanor he had in his life. So I hope I channel a little bit of that, and hopefully by the end of the piece, they will hear try to express Ben arriving at the gates of whatever lies beyond the gates of heaven, I like to think. And I think that's how the piece ends. So I hope they can hear that little journey through that piece.
So let's get into your music life and beginning in France. Talk to me a little bit about your beginnings. How did music, and more specifically jazz, get cultivated into this career?
Yeah, so I studied classical music in France in a conservatory, starting at age 6 or 7. And I didn't have much jazz in my early education. At first, the first couple of years were really, the first 5 or 6 years were really conservative. It's a French conservatory. It was at the end of the 20th century. It was in the 90s. So that's a long time ago. Yeah. But at the time, it was very classical oriented. It's thought, like maybe Baroque to late Romanticism, early 20th century, like the end of the tonal era, basically. And they had a jazz band at the conservatory, but it was seen as inferior music. It was like, oh, if you want to have a break, just play some jazz. And I would listen to them at the time with a little bit of, without really understanding what was going on. And it's only later that I decided to, after conservatory, after getting my high school degree, And a couple years passed, and I really wanted to go into film, actually. And so I looked at options to study film music, and the more attractive option to me, option to me was going to Berklee College of Music. And going there really changed my musical, I don't want to say identity because it sounds like they formatted me, but it opened a lot of windows and it brought a lot of tools. And jazz is such an important culture or subculture at Berklee for a long time that I got really into it. And I was surrounded by all these incredible musicians coming from all around the world with great skills and also great different culture. They brought, everybody bringing their own identity, and this mix of culture was fascinating. And I think in many ways it's also what jazz is. It's like this constant mix of so many cultures clashing and getting rich from each other. And I think was the most exciting part about discovering jazz. Yes, and then from my career is mostly writing music for video games and TV, so there's not so much space for jazz, although lately I've decided to really follow my own dreams and do this new jazz albums that I'm working on right now. So yeah, so that's my whole path through music, and I don't know what's next, but right now it's jazz.
I dig it. So let me ask you this. What was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away, that made you think, wow, that's amazing?
Live, I'm trying to think. I used to go to, in southern France, there was, every year there was a jazz festival, the Nice Jazz Festival. I think still exists. And I remember I was probably the late 80s. I was very young. There are two. First of all, I remember seeing Miles Davis, which I'm very, very fortunate that I saw him live. There's not so many people anymore can say that.
Yeah.
And there was this French player called Michel Petrucciani, who passed away a while ago now, but he was this incredible jazz and fusion at the time player, and that was something that was so exciting, and so it was magic. How can you make all this incredible, powerful sound coming out of the piano? And I think that was my first really almost mystical experience with jazz.
So you obviously started in music early on. You've had a long career. What has been the difference between your idea of what you thought your career in music was going to be like and actually living that life? What's been the difference?
I wasn't ready for all the self-management that is required as a musician, because we are our own employer and employee, and we have to really promote ourselves. We have to motivate ourselves to work on our days from morning to evening. Being in school was so easy because everything was, you go to this class at 9 and then that other class at 10, and then everything was so. And then suddenly I was out in the world, and I thought that jobs would come one after the other magically. And they didn't. And there was long moments, and there will always be long moments of unemployment and doubt and self-doubt. And I think what I wasn't really ready is that psychological work you have to do in yourself to not go crazy and not think, well, I'm a fraud, which, I mean, we all have this imposter syndrome, but to think like, oh, I should give up. Why do I want to do this so badly when I haven't worked for so long, when it is such a fragile, and then now it's AI, before it was like MIDI computers, and there's always something that you think it's going to be the end of music industry as we know it. And so far it's survived. But I think it's all this aspects of that is not really music, but it's about knowing myself. And paradoxically, it's so important to know that now, because it's where most of our musical identity comes from. It's like the work we do on ourselves and how we find peace and also inspiration. So I think all this aspect of knowing myself was something I had no idea. And I probably still don't. And I probably need another 20, 30 years to figure it out, or not, but we'll see.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What motivates you to get up every day to create this music in a variety of ways? What is that for you?
It's mostly recording and working with other musicians. Every time I'm so blown away by that collaboration. And it's both intimidating and exciting to be in a room or even remotely, but to work with somebody who has 10, 20, 30, 40 years of music experience, and I've seen and played so much, and they're going to bring the very humble melody I wrote or arrangement I wrote to another level. And it's just, there's so much, I'm still impressed, although, you know, there's so much MIDI instruments, software instruments, and computers that can do a very good job at emulating this. And despite that technology and the advancements in technology, when somebody plays live with their imperfections, but with their also history of artistry that's behind it, it's so exciting. And that's the main motivation for me, is like to work with something. And when I'm looking at the score and I'm thinking, oh, somebody's going to play those notes, it's like, I'm so excited. And there's a pressure, and a healthy pressure to try to be as good as possible.
So you've been around a lot of veteran, big-time people in the world of music and even jazz with Peter Erskine and those types of musicians. What have you learned from those elders of music that you in turn pass on to the younger players that you get around?
That's a difficult question. Well, people like Peter or Ben, since he was an old soul, I would say, had this, besides the experience I mentioned before, I find almost all of them are very humble. And you wouldn't, if you didn't know about music or who they are, it would be easy to just think they are just regular people, and they are, of course, but they are also geniuses in so many aspects. And it's that humility that impressed me the most, and how they're always ready to learn more, and many of them I'm always touched, because when I send some music to them, they say, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm like, are you kidding? Thank you. I'm like, I'm so honored. And they are like, they go through that, that humility, and they see that every chance of playing music together is a gift. And it's something I have to always remember. It's a gift we're given to be able to do music and to play together, and to this extraordinary mysterious thing that music is, because I still haven't understood exactly what it is. It's so abstract. You cannot put it into words, and yet it works, and it moves people. What a mysterious thing it is.
So let me ask you this. I know you do different genres of music, but specifically for jazz, why do you love this art form we call jazz?
I think I mentioned that earlier, and I think it's probably the core of it. I like how it takes from so many different areas. You can jazz can have Latin components, it can have blues components, it can have they have that also because they have like all the African rhythms, the European harmonies, and it's like to me it's a little bit like the ultimate form of music. You can write almost anything and make it jazz. You cannot if you do play salsa, you have to adhere some codes. If you do classical music, it's the same thing. You have to rules, and going to conservatory, you have to the parallel fifths and stuff. And of course, many composers have broken those rules, but there's no such thing with jazz, and it's something that's so exciting that it's almost the ultimate, the final form almost of music. It's just when everything goes together, like the end of history in music. It might be jazz, and it's like me I often see it as if we achieve world peace at the end of history, and we will be all playing jazz, perhaps, because it seems to be like the perfect form of it has some improvisation, it has some. You can play it with one person, you can play it with like an entire orchestra, you can have strings, you have a big band. It's fantastic. So that's really what excites me about jazz.
So you've clearly seen somebody that many people would love to have seen and caught live, like Miles Davis. But if you ultimately could get into a time machine and go back in time and see a performer, a concert, a band, where would you go? Who would you love to see live?
They have to choose one person.
You can do a magical mystery tour.
Right. I love the era I live in. It's difficult because, of course, so many people I wish I had seen live, and we all love, I guess, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it seems like mostly because jazz hasn't been as popular, and the market share of jazz isn't what it used to be. But I have so many friends, and I've been to so many concerts of people I didn't even know. And I can still see people like Herbie Hancock, who plays every year, at the ball around, 15 minutes away from my home. It's a very difficult question. I would love to have been in New York in the early 60s and going to jazz clubs. And I think it would be that scene that still exists in some aspects, but it's not, I would love to spend a couple of weeks in the 60s.
That's it. I dig it. That's a great answer. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mostly I see myself as a work in progress, and with no precise clue, no idea of where I am going to end up and what kind of music I am going to even like, but make. And that's, strangely, it's exciting. And so I think I'm a musician in progress, and also hopefully a human being in progress.
So if anybody wants to catch you live, where's the best place to go to find out about any of your itinerary or what's going on?
My website is always the best place to check out the latest things about me. So it's my full name.com, laurentziliani.com.
And then if anybody wants to pick up a copy of Skybound, where can they get that?
Okay. At the moment, there is no hard copy.
Okay.
It's, so it's all streaming platforms, or obviously you can buy MP3s or lossless versions, rather, I would prefer. So I've hesitated about the CDs. I think I'll make very few for the upcoming album. I'll probably make about 500 of them, but I wish I miss the CD era.
Yeah.
I'm actually at my parents' right now, and there's a big number of the CDs I had when I was a teenager, and it's such a fantastic And I'm not really a vinyl guy because I was a little too young for the vinyls, but it's the same thing. I miss the object, holding the object, looking at, opening the booklet and looking at, the liner notes and just listening again and again and again to the same track.
Yeah.
And this unlimited streaming that I'm feeding with my album, unfortunately, is something that I'm a little sad about, because I feel we don't listen to the same way as before. And I don't want to say it's better. It was better before and everything. It's always been changing. But I like the way I consume music back in the 90s and early 2000s, buying a CD and just listening to the track number 5 again and again, and probably 1,000 times.
Yeah.
As opposed to being pushed the next track as soon as it's over, with a mysterious algorithm that's based on some AI guessing what I'm gonna like next. But I'm digressing a lot.
I totally get it. Hey man, thank you so much. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I will put links in the show notes. It's great to meet you. Best of luck on the album. Have a wonderful holiday season. I appreciate it.
Thank you, you too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in France, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Laurent for his time and story. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.